Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the United Front Football Podcast. It is a football podcast. It's been a couple of weeks. I can't remember actually what these words mean. With me,
It's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day. I mean, we are recording on Monday the 28th. So obviously, if you've been watching the football news, there's been nothing going on at all, either at Man United or surrounding the Ballon d'Or. So yeah, I've had no idea what's going on. It is me and Mr. Breezy once again coming to talk absolute slap facts to you and at you. And obviously we're all 100% correct on everything that we say forever.
Actually.
At the Villa fans on Twitter for Breezy. We'll jump straight into it. We always ask for hot takes and questions and stuff like that, but we will come to that later in the episode, because obviously it was the United Front derby at the weekend, and it went swimmingly for both of us. Just a standard game of football with no contentious decisions and no questionable antics afterwards either. I'll hand over to you, because you were at the game, right?
I was, yeah.
So how did you take it from being in the stadium, from what you saw? Because I only caught what I could. I went on a brief holiday to South Africa to get it, but unfortunately the TV reception down there was terrible, so I kept missing bits of the game. So as someone who watched the full 90 minutes, I'll hand over to you to start.
Yeah, very much game of two halves in like every sense of the word. It kind of goes without saying, West Ham were absolutely shambolic in the first 45 minutes. Like how we weren't at least 3-0 down by half time. It's all part miracle, part Diego Dallo, which like I'm now, with the hindsight of what's happened today, I'm now questioning whether in fact he missed that on purpose, because I've never personally seen anything like that before in my time going over the football. It was one of the most extraordinary misses I think I've ever seen like live. Because like he beats Fabianski to the ball, and I was like, "Well, we're a goal down then." Like, I just accepted it, and then to see it go over the bar.
How are we going to come back from this?
Yeah, like the goal in which it happened was like below where I sit, and it was absolutely incredible that we weren't, like I say, not even just from that chance. Obviously, Fabianski made a really good save just before halftime from Casemiro, and there was like 3 or 4 occasions where Bruno Fernandes would pick the ball up on the edge of his own box, just launch it over our very high defensive line into like Garnacho or Rashford or Højlund or whatever.
Just few of the fastest players in the Premier League.
That's the thing.
Just lump it over your slow centre back.
Yeah, it was. So from the first half perspective, very, very frustrating from my side anyway, just because I was watching it and it just felt like we'd learnt nothing from the Spurs game, obviously, that happened last week, which we didn't get to talk about, but that was obviously second half of that game. And we're that team at the moment. You don't really know what team West Ham you're going to get either side of half time, really. Like, just to touch on Spurs briefly, I thought we were quite good first half, and then obviously shambolic in the second. It was kind of the opposite here. Starting 11 was weird. Like Lucas Paqueta, very, very fortunate to retain his place. Got hooked to half time. I'd be surprised if he keeps his place for the next game. And Carlos Soler playing out on the left-hand side when he's a central midfielder just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like when I saw the lineup, I thought if Paqueta's playing back on the left, I kind of get it, because if we're being honest, even though he's more well known as a central midfielder, during his time at West Ham, his best form has come playing on that left-hand side. So I thought maybe that's what Lopetegui's going to try and do, sort of reconnect that partnership he had with Emerson, and try and get the best form out of him by returning him to a more familiar position. But no, he still played in the middle, and he was still completely ineffective, as he has been since the start of the season, really. But with all that said, like, credit to Lopetegui, like, and as much as I was slating for the first half, I think you've got to give him credit for the changes. The triple sub he made at halftime completely swung the game back in our favour. Like, I thought Crescencio Somerville, goal aside, was just an absolute difference maker. Like, to have someone on that left hand side with pace and who's direct and will just happy to get the ball and run at people and cause a bit of havoc. The United back line was really good to see, and he should be starting from now on, like, off the back of that performance. It felt like a performance of someone who's been a bit frustrated that he's not had much in the way of starts as of yet, and that was someone sort of taking his opportunity, it felt like. Obviously, Tadibo came on for Mavropanos, and I thought we looked a lot more sure defensively. Allowed Wan-Bissaka to get a bit further forward, and knowing he'd have someone covering him. I think Tadibo would have started, but apparently he failed like a late fitness test, and I didn't want to risk him. But it kind of says a lot about the difference quality between Mavropanos and Tadibo, where it's like, okay, we've got Mavropanos was doing fine. It's like we got sort of a half baked, not fully fit Tadibo on the bench. We're getting slaughtered. Let's get him on there because he's obviously that good. And again, I think you could just sort of see the difference it made to our back line when he came on. And I've got to say, Thomas Souček continues to surprise me with every game this season. Like, out of every player who was here last year, I genuinely think he's the one who's adapted the quickest to this new style of play, which is insane. Like, I never would have predicted that to be the case. But, like, it's no exaggeration to say that when Thomas Souček came onto the pitch, West Ham ends up getting more control of the game. Like, that is not something that would have happened last year because you associate Souček as being this sort of clumsy, sort of gangly midfielder who can't, pass wind or anything like that, or trap a bag of cement. So it's kind of like, yeah, very, very surprising. But he really did make a difference, and we sort of shuffled the formation a little bit. And I actually thought, as bad as we were in the first half, I actually thought second half we were the better team because Man United didn't really offer any threat going forward anymore. Didn't really cause us too many issues aside from that sort of little 10-minute spell after we scored, and obviously you guys got the equaliser. But even then, after the equaliser, like I do think if you look at the balance of the entire 90 minutes, a draw would have been a fairer result. But watching it, I did think if there is going to be another goal in this game, I did think it was going to go our way. Wasn't the way it happened wasn't what I expected, obviously, and we'll talk about that. But it just felt like United they'd missed those. And I think the Dalot miss was a real turning point. I think because it was what 5 minutes before half time, I think.
Yeah,
or maybe like 15 minutes before half time. But I imagine when you're a team who's already struggling to score goals and struggling to get the ball in the back of the net and kill teams off, when something like that happens, it must be quite easy to sort of fall into a mindset of just like, man, if we can't score that, we're never going to score. And the second half, it felt to me like United had kind of just run out of ideas a little bit. Yeah, and obviously the penalty from I don't mind saying it, it's never a penalty. Like in a million years, I can't believe that's something that VAR decided to get involved with because
it's funny with the penalty thing that I can't remember a dodgy VAR decision being so universally agreed on.
Yeah.
That it was just not only wrong but laughably wrong and a sign of what is the issue with VAR. Like, because like generally speaking, when there's a bad VAR decision, you'll have a load of people going, well, I can see why it's been done this way, or I can see why it's been done that way, or fans, being happy that they've got it, and it's like, but like you say, even seeing West Ham fans going, oh, that's a shocker. Like, I can't believe that. I can't believe that's happened. And like non-United fans, like anti-United fans going, yeah, what the fuck? Like this is messed up. Like I can't remember. I mean, obviously, like there probably has been ones that are equally as just kind of widely derided and panned, but I'm struggling to think of one where literally everybody, every media outlet, every pundit, every fan, every tweeter, every ex-user, whatever the hell it is these days, is agreeing on it. It's unless you're just being contrarian, but yeah, it was a shocker. Yeah. But it happens, and
it's the fact that it was like it was down the end where I was sitting, and like Ings goes down, and it just even where I was standing or sitting, it looked like it's just a bit of a coming together about 3 or 4 different players, and he's just hit the deck. I don't know if he was hoping for something. Like, there's obviously contact, and the fact, he's gone down, so he probably is trying to look for something. But like, you just think, oh yeah, it's never a penalty, so like whatever. And then it flashed up on the screen saying checking for a possible penalty, and you're like, well, there's no way. I was like, maybe that's delayed, and it's just going to come up immediately saying check cleared. But then when the ref stops the game and goes to the monitor, you're like,
and the amount of time between the incident and the VAR check as well, it's like the game had carried on for like a few minutes, and it's like, oh no, actually, we're going to go back 5 minutes and have a look at this.
Yeah,
what?
Completely bizarre.
Yeah, every opportunity, like every time the showed it again, and every opportunity was like to go, oh no, actually no, it's fine. It was like, oh no, this is carrying on. And because at no time did I think, oh, well, once I'd seen it a couple of times, there's no way this is being given. And then it's like, sending him over at the screen. And the amount of time that he spent watching it, and he looked embarrassed almost. Like he was stood there going,
I was going to say, you see his face when he sort of turns back towards the pitch and he's about to give it. he looks like a bloke who doesn't agree with the decision, which is mental
Yeah.
when you're the referee of the game. Like,
obviously, that's just assuming. Like
insane.
he might have come to that decision all by himself. But if he's got the head of like the highest rated
Michael Oliver,
ref,
right?
it's Michael Oliver. Yeah. Like so
Yeah.
the most senior referee in English football going, no, we're giving this penalty. And it's like, okay, I guess I'm giving a penalty then. Yeah, just a joke, but it's like I say, it happens. Like you roll with the punches. It does feel like it hasn't felt like it's evened out once this year for United. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But there's still another half a season or 2/3 of a season to go. Whatever. We're only 9 games in. Copium. I'll kind of jump in from my side as well. So like I kind of like echo pretty much everything that you've said. Like I think Lopetegui has showed really good, and you've talked about it before, where he's happy to admit that he's got something wrong and change things and get a better performance. The change that he made at halftime, like kind of moving to a bit more of a back three, pushing the fullbacks up, like because I think the big thing that was happening in the first half is Dalot was getting the free reign of that right hand side, winning the midfield battle as well. Mazraoui was controlling things a little bit more, and I think freeing up those wing backs by having Alvarez almost drop into a back three just put us under pressure, and we couldn't really build anything from that after that. But like,
it was one of them where I think it's one of them where like out of possession, back three, in possession, Alvarez steps up sort of thing, which we've seen before, and it has been really effective in the past.
Yeah, so it's just like shutting down what was good for us in that first half, and I think that first half was as good as we've played in the last 18 months since that first season under Ten Hag, really. Created some really good chances, didn't finish them. In all honesty, like it should have been 2 or 3 by half time. And at that point, you'd think that it's game over, right? Like, but as Man United have showed all season, we just can't finish chances at all. Our front three, our attackers just can't score, won't score. And it was just like a frustrating thing to see happen. But halftime happened, changes happen. West Ham make the substitutions, take control of the game, and there's just nothing from United. I don't think it's necessarily on the players, but I don't like for the manager not to make changes sooner, see what's happened, make tweaks to the system that can fix that. Like bring on Xerxes a little bit easier, put that back three theoretically under a bit more pressure with a couple of strikers, like. Give midfield a bit more legs or whatever it is, like. But you just saw nothing. It was just like for like until it was too late. Like for like changes, if and when they happen. Like Rashford came off. I think Rashford had an okay game in the first half, but not great. I think Garnacho was our danger, but he's so wasteful. Like that kid needs to start maturing. Like he's going into his 3rd season in the first team now. And whilst he's exciting and a bit of a difference maker and can do the unexpected, you need a bit more consistency. Like you need to have a base level which is a 6 out of 10, and he varies wildly from a 3 to an 8. Like it's just his final ball and decision making, and it's frustrating because both Rashford and Garnacho tend to have their brightest moments on that left hand side, but both of them have the thing where they're in the final third and all they want to do is create a shot for themselves. I think they're both more effective on the right-hand side because they're a little bit more limited. And it's like, do you want a player to have to be playing within themselves to be a little bit more consistent? Or do you want them to have the right decision-making when they're playing their preferred position? Then that's a frustration with both of those players. And I kind of feel bad for Ahmad because I was saying it on my stream before, like, whilst I don't think he's been incredible. I think he's been our most consistent player on that right-hand side. And I feel like he's been punished a little bit for wanting to, not sign a new contract until he's shown that he's wanted at the club, basically. And he's just been parked, and he's, getting subbed on for Anthony, who's come on as a sub. Like, it feels like he's behind Anthony in the pecking orders. Like, or why would you be motivated to stick around if that's the case? I mean, we'll go on to what could happen in the future in a little bit. But yeah, that first half, I thought we were great. Maybe you're right, the sucker punch of missing basically an open goal. It's like, oh God, what do we even have to do? But then, like I said, no changes in the second half to contradict what West Ham were doing. That falls on the manager again. it was a lifeless performance from us in the second half until we went behind. Then it felt like we pushed on a little bit. But that, like you said, like that goal was coming for West Ham. And I said it on about the hour mark. I said, "Oh, this has got a West Ham late winner written all over it." So I thought we were going to get to like the 80th minute and you're going to nick one. Scored a bit earlier, I think. Showed a little bit of grit after that and created a couple of chances. And I don't know what it is with Casemiro, but he just seems to have a ball magnet of a head. Like everything just goes to his head. Whenever he's on the pitch and we've got a set piece late on in the game, I just think, well, he's scoring with his head, isn't he? Like the amount of important set piece goals he's got. And then the penalty happens. There's no point in dwelling on it. Like there's no point in being angry about it. I've already clapped about 5 people on Twitter or like just calling it corruption. It's like, no, it's just incompetence doesn't mean it's corruption, right? It's like that's always my line. It was a shit decision. It shouldn't have been a penalty, but it was. At the end of the day, United should have been clear and dry by half time. And or changed how they were approaching the game when they saw how West Ham had changed it, when Lopetegui had changed it. Another underwhelming result, even though I think the performance was better. And I mean, we'll move on to it right now. Like it's cost Erik ten Hag his job completely unsurprisingly. Bloke's won 1 game of the last 8. He's gone over the worst start to a Premier League season in our history, the worst Premier League season ever in our history previous to that. And that's after the green shoots of the first season, finishing 3rd, winning a trophy, it all felt really good. And before we go on to that, like, how do you feel like this has? Because obviously there's been a lot of critics of like Lopetegui and like people even calling for his head, which I think is insane. Like it's like get rid of him already. It's like, are you actually mental? Like the guy's not even had 10 games there. I know it like that happened at Wolves, but like I think there's been signs of like people picking things up. Like you say, Soucek like seems to be getting used to the system pretty quickly. Like I think the Spurs game was just mental anyway. But I think there has been signs of an improvement around trying to fundamentally change how the team plays and has been playing for the past 4 or 5 years, right? Do you think this kind of gives him a little bit of a break, or is it going to have like an asterisk next to it? Like, but it was against Man United, against the guy that just got sacked. Like, is it going to be like that? Like,
it depends however people want to try and spin it, right? Like, because only if people are going to have agendas, they're going to try and spin whatever way they want to fit that, right? So, like, for example, I could easily sit if I was like properly against Lopetegui, I could sit here and say, well, we only beat Palace, who only just won their first game of the season. We only beat Ipswich, who conceded 4 against Brentford, and we only just beat Man United from a dodgy VAR decision. Do you know? And remove any and all context of like what actually happened in those games and how he played and stuff. Like for me, I'm not and I think we've been doing this long enough, and you've been speaking to me about football for long enough that I'm usually quite patient. I'm always willing to give time, even with Moyes. Like it took me a long time to really be like he's just got to go now. With Lopetegui, I was sat there and I think I tweeted it just before half time, where I was like, I am trying really really hard to like be.
I saw your tweet actually.
He's just making it incredibly difficult. And the thing that is frustrating. And I will say there are positives, and I'll get onto them. But the thing that is worrying me the most, and my biggest concern, is that we're 10 games in, and the same issues are there, and it doesn't really seem like there's any attempt to rectify them. Now, obviously, that they were rectified after half time, but against Spurs and not against Spurs, against every team this year, our biggest problem has been in transition. We are a really easy team to counter attack against because we push the wing backs up so incredibly high, and ultimately, as good of a player as I think Guido Rodriguez actually is, and I actually thought he had a really good game, bar an opening shaky 10 minutes on Sunday. I actually thought he was really good, and first half against Spurs, he was really good as well. But him, Soucek, Alvarez, Paqueta, like all of our central midfielders don't really have the legs to deal with sort of high turnovers and stuff. So when you're playing against a Spurs or United who recognise that and can just launch the ball forward, you're leaving yourselves in a 2v3, 2v4 situation most of the time. And that's exactly what happened against Spurs in that sort of 10-minute collapse in the second half. But on the flip side of that, like we've said, he's shown he can rectify it. And I think there's a thing at the moment where I don't really think he still really knows what his best team or best setup is. But I do think he's getting closer to it. And I think the Kudus ban that's going to be coming up because he decided to wipe out half the Spurs team, which was funny, but he's an idiot, but it was funny.
The justified red card, like if you're going to get sent off, at least do it by slapping someone around the face. Like,
absolutely, he's probably going to miss 6 games, but it's fine. It's like, but like that presents an opportunity for, like, say, Crescencio Somerville now to really nail down a spot. And it when Kudus comes back, and like to give Kudus, again, I think he was an idiot for it. I do think it's meant, like, someone tweeted, I think it was an Athletic journalist, who again I really, really like, and I think he's great, but he tweeted after that Spurs game like, "Oh, I don't think Kudus does that when David Moyes is manager." I'm like, what? The same David Moyes who booted a ball boy when he lost the Europa League semi-final? Like, do me a favour. The important context of Kudus there is, I think Ghana in the international break that preceded that game had just missed out on qualification for AFCON, so he had a bit of a shit week. And I think, and then he comes back, his team finds themselves 4-1 down within 10 minutes. I think he just lost his head. But yeah, sorry. Anyway, so like, I think with Paqueta's form not being great, it gives Kudus an opportunity to come back a little bit more motivated to make up for things. He might be able to get a role in that sort of middle part of the pitch, and maybe he will figure it out. I just want to see what I think Lopetegui needs to get the critics off his back really now is just a couple of games where there's a consistent performance from minute 1 to minute 90, which you're not always going to get, granted. But we're, like I said earlier, we're so much like you don't know what team is going to turn up either side of half time with West Ham at the moment. And the problem is we've got some more. We don't really have a favourable run of fixtures until December now because we've got Forest away next, then Everton at home, who've sort of picked things up a little bit. And I think Newcastle away is after that. So like, our November is pretty difficult. It's only really when you get to December that it's quite. Oh yeah, and Arsenal at home to round off November. So it's another difficult month in terms of fixtures, and the fixtures hasn't been kind to us. But
well, you know, Newcastle are shy. Everton and Arsenal both play part of the bus football, so like, that'll be easy.
Yeah, this is true. But yeah, I don't know. At the moment I'm still fully behind him, and I think there are still. I'm not willing to ignore the positive signs just to, just to focus on the negative signs of it. But if the negatives of this style of play continue to be a problem and they're not rectified and they're not addressed, then it is going to be a lot more difficult to defend him. But I think if he can come away from the next 3 games, which is Forest away, Everton at home, Newcastle away, with 7 points, 7 points from those games, maybe even 5, then I don't really think we can grumble too much. People will, but yeah, I get a decent return from these next 3 games, and I think you can start making a good argument for the fact we're moving in a positive direction.
I think, like I've been on the same point of view as you, like this whole time. Is like I think expecting immediate change and success is just mental, especially when you're jumping from, like just a big overturning players. Is like, let's not forget, but as well like almost a completely different style of play. It's not going from like. It's not going Moyes to Pep, but like it's a more open style of play. You're trying to attack more, you're trying to create more, you're trying to have a bit more like inventiveness rather than just being rigid. We're going to try and soak up all the pressure and then hit our fast striker and then maybe like get something in the second ball or something. I think unless things go catastrophically wrong, and by that I mean you're in a relegation fight, he's got to have at least the first year. You've got to at least give him the season, and then maybe evaluate it at the end. Like if you get to the end of the season and you're 15th, and it's like this has been a train wreck. Like I'm all for giving managers the time, and I was saying the same thing about Ten Hag and like the slew of Man United managers earlier. I'm all for like on my stream earlier, sorry. All for giving managers time, and managers do need time to implement things and change things and get the right kind of players around them and get their things. Their style and their hate the term philosophy, but you know what I mean. Like
I know you mean,
like how they want to control the game and the patterns of play and all that kind of stuff. It does take time to do that, but you can't give time to the wrong person. And I think that's why like certain times it's like, okay, well, I want it all to work out as well, but the evidence isn't showing it. And if you get to like 12 months in, if you get to the end of the year. That'll be the case. Like if that's the case, then I'm sure West Ham will move on and look for someone else. But give him a year. The guy's got a really good CV. You can see the green shoots. There are positives as well as negatives, and you've just got to hope that those positives and negatives start to balance out where there's more positives than negatives over the course of the season. Let's not forget you're missing your hopefully starting striker. He's barely kicked a ball for you. And there has been some injury issues. Your probably best centre half is just about getting fit again, into Debo. And I think that once that gets settled, and also like middle of the park, the most important part of the pitch, you've got question marks over Paqueta, not only in his performances, but is he even going to be allowed to play football in the next 12 months?
Yeah.
And then a load of new faces in there as well, who are still bedding in from last year or brand new to the club. Like you've got Soler and you've got, is it Rodriguez?
Rodriguez.
With the two new faces in that midfield, alongside, as you were saying, players who you thought weren't going to be able to transition, or players coming into their second season at the club there. So there's a big turnover and a big change in the way that things are happening at West Ham. So yeah, you got, like I said, unless you're battling relegation and going into February, like you're in a relegation fight, you can see it coming. He's got to see out the season. I think a solid mid-table finish with green shoots of improvement is great. Would be great because, let's be completely honest, for the vast majority of David Moyes' time there, it was mid-table finishes with depressing football. If you're going to be getting the same league finishes and like maybe a little bit of glee in a cup tournament or something, like at least if the football's a little bit better and it looks like it's going to keep improving, then like you've made the right choice, I think.
I agree. But according to some prevalent West Ham journalists, the transfer window was a disgrace and Nicholas Fogel was the worst signing of this window. So, he's played 65 minutes, by the way, for someone who works at the Guardian to come out and say that is fucking ludicrous. But anyway, I won't dwell on it because there's no point.
It's obviously not wound you up at all.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I touched on it. Obviously, that result has cost Erik ten Hag his job. It was, like I said, it's been one win in 8. There's a lot of draws in there. There's been some parts of games where there's been okay football, and it's sad, man, because I thought the first few games, it was like, okay, there's something here now. Like, we were looking a bit more creative. We were looking a bit more kind of dangerous. There's still a few gaps and a few holes here and there, but it's like, no, this is looking better. But when it wasn't coming off and the results weren't matching with performances, and we're coming out of games that we should have won drawing or losing, and we're throwing away like 2-0 leads and all this kind of, and just you're starting to see the same issues of last season coming out. The big gaps all over the pitch, the lack of creativity in the final third, our main striker, whether it be Xerxes or Højlund, coming away with a shot in a game. It's like, we've stemmed the 20 shots a game happening against us. And we're still getting quite a few opportunities against us, but it's nowhere near the frequency it was happening last year. But it feels like the mitigating circumstances, the almost kind of it's not an allowance, but it's almost like the safety blanket excuse of, well, all our defenders are injured. We're having to play Johnny Evans, who wasn't at a club 6 months ago. It's like, no, you've got all your first. Yeah, okay, we're missing Luke Shaw, but Luke Shaw's shown over the last 3 or 4 years that he cannot be relied on to be fit.
No.
We've got Tyrell Malacia, who, as far as I'm aware, has been banished to the Shadow Realm. Like, we don't have another left back. Like, okay, well, you've got to manage your squad then. And we've got players who can play there and have filled in there. And I think Dallow's kind of flitted between being decent and poor in that position. I think Mazraoui actually did a pretty good job at left back in the first half at the weekend. Maybe that'll be who has to play there now. Depending on how they go into these games under Rude, like it'll be at least a game or two under Rude.
Yeah.
It's a first choice team, and it's not as reported, or like a lot of kind of reactionary stuff of like, well, this group of players have got another manager sacked. It's like, no, this is his players. Like the guy's signed 15 players. Like you can go through it. Luke Shaw isn't playing, but he wasn't his signing. Marcus Rashford was brought through under Van Gaal. But you go back to front. Onana, his signing. Dalot wasn't his signing, granted. Starting centre-halves, his signings. Midfield, Mainu was brought through under him. Casemiro was signed under him. Ericsson was brought in under him. Ugarte doesn't seem to be able to get a minute, even though he was the best midfielder on the pitch in Europe in the week.
Yeah, he was.
You've got Amad and Garnacho, who've been brought into the first team under him. Both strikers, Xerxes and Højlund, they're his signings. This isn't the same group of players like where it was 2 or 3 managers where they've bounced between them and it's the majority of the same squad. This isn't the same players. We've got another manager sacked. This is a manager that hasn't been able to get the players that he's bought or been given to perform under him. And at the end of the day, if you can't get him to do that, you're going to pay for it with your job. The last 18 months have been really poor. Like I said, the first season, 3rd place in a cup was great. It's like, oh, great. We've finally found the guy. Like, we're playing some decent football. We're getting the best out of like our attacking players. Marcus Rashford was looking great. And then it all just went to shit. Like, granted, injuries were the mitigating circumstance last year, but that's not the excuse anymore. Why are we still seeing the same issues? Why are we still not creating? Why are our strikers not coming away with shots? Why can't we finish chances? And at the end of the day, like, if all those things, it's like those tactical things, those tactical reasons are why you're keeping not winning games that you should be winning, the manager's going to pay for it with his job. The quality of the players that the club has got is better than the performances and the results that we're getting. We've seen it from them, from all these players, and we've seen it in flashes for parts of games. It's like, so it's got to be a structural thing. And that's the only thing I can think. It's sad, but 18 months of regression, which is what it's been. Finished 3rd, then 8th. We're in 14th now. Won 3 of 9. Got a negative goal difference again. We've actually got the same goal difference as you.
Yeah, I think we're above you on goals scored.
Yeah. We've scored 8 goals in 9 games, which is mental. So yeah, the manager's got to go. It's
can't really argue with it, can you? It's
at this point, like I can understand why they kept him around at the end of the season, like at the end of last season, because of the reasons I've given. Like what the reasons as to, because obviously there was this whole big thing of they did a root and branch kind of breakdown of the season and whether the manager's the right guy, and they even talked to other managers, decided that he was the right guy for it because they'll have taken that into account. Like, look, the guy didn't have half of the team for half of the season, so he gets the first third of the season, first quarter of the season.
Yeah.
To show, I still think that if the results weren't quite as bad, he'd have probably stayed until Christmas, if not to the end of the season, and they'd have gone, you know what? Like, this just ain't working out. But the results have been so bad that you've just got to stem it. Like, if you want to save anything from this season, you need to make a change and quick. And whilst, we've lost 4 of the first 9, you can still turn that around. Like, you can still get a top 6, top 4 finish, losing, 7 or 8 games. Like, but you need to change things quick. My confusion is why now and not after that Spurs game where it was evident. It's like going into an international break. The only thing I can think, and how quickly the news has broke today, it looks like Amorim has been agreed. I wonder whether after that game, they were going. They got on the blower to Amorim, and they've been thrashing it out since then. So, and it might have been a case of like, look, you're going to be our next manager. It might be in the next few months, or it might be in January, or it might be in Christmas. And they've just expedited it a little bit, maybe.
It might not have even been just Amorim. It might have been because I agree. I think the Spurs game was the catalyst because it was so. That felt like the low point. And that felt like the sort of like the turning point, really. Where, like you say, there was.
I'm still not convinced we couldn't have come back and won that, by the way, because they are Spurs. If we had 10 men on the pitch, we've seen it. We've literally seen them do it in like 3 or 4 games this season where they've been 2-0 up and just absolutely shat it in the second half.
I'm not as personally convinced, but like regardless, I think it was such a.
It's the copium.
It was such a. It was such a meek like low performance. Like in previous bad results this year, you could like say if it was a draw, okay, they've just not taken their chances. And I do think that the West Ham game at the weekend. It feels like because I don't think Man United lost that game because of the penalty. I think they ultimately lost it because they didn't kill the game off in the first half when they had ample opportunity to. And I always struggle to blame the manager when it's a case of players not being able to put the ball in the back of the net. Like, I can't blame Ten Hag for Dalot missing an open goal when he's had 5 touches of the ball before he gets there. Like, but maybe it's not a case of, like at that point they knew Amram was the guy. But I think at that point they started sounding out other managers, and it's just happened to come to this point that maybe in the last couple of weeks they've had wins that Amram would be interested in coming, and then obviously the result against Fenerbahce and then the result on the weekend has just kind of accelerated things a little bit. Because, like you say, it's gotten to the point now where it's pretty much it was untenable. And I think I said to you, like after a few games, after a few dodgy results, that like, look, I don't think he's going to last much longer. I don't think he can turn this around. But I never really got the impression that he lost the dressing room. It just felt like he just run out of ideas. And I think players know when that happens that there's no real going back.
The amount of second halves of games where it's been where things haven't quite gone to plan in the first half. Like, I think there's been like quite a few good first halves this season, but the amount of times where points have been thrown away or like games lost in the second half where things just aren't clicking, and he doesn't seem to adapt. And we heard it from the horse's mouth last year. Where it's like, I don't want to train my players to play a different way. I want to play one way. So I'm going to teach them how to play that. Then flips that on his head to go and win the FA Cup final against Man City, which was mad because we actually deserved to win that. That wasn't a smash and grab. That we were better than him on the day, and he out-tacticked him. But then to go back to the same issues that we saw all the way through the season last season is just, it's mental. And yeah, it's like you say, it's cost him his job. There's very little that he could do, and I think, like you say, the players kind of knew the writing was on the wall there. I don't think he's a bad manager. I think he's proven in through his career, and even what he's done at Man United, he's not a bad manager. He knows his way around a tactic. I just don't think he has the personality maybe for a job with this kind. Cause you hear it from even reporters and journalists saying like, when they put out a Man United story, it's twice as many people see it as anyone else.
I would say in England, I couldn't rank it. I think they're sort of on a level field, but I think the United job and the England job, there's a lot of parallels in terms of how under the microscope you are.
I think the only clubs in Europe that you're anywhere close are like Real, Barca. Yeah. Obviously, and I'm not even like I'm not. Reading Spanish newspapers, but like from what you see on a social media thing on an impact there, maybe Bayern in Germany, it just kind of like dominates the sports back pages, and it is a constant. It's a 24/7 thing. It's like looking for any reason to stick the boot in on Man United because it gets clicks, it gets listeners, it gets call-ins, it gets people talking, it gets traffic, it gets all that kind of stuff, and I just don't think he had the personality to deal with it. Like I think he tried to be bullish about it, and it just came away as obtuse and not really getting it, rather than not really caring about it. But like the bloke had a hate campaign from day one. Like the guy walks out and like you've got Simon Jordan slagging off his suit for the first game interview. He's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, he looks small." Jesus, like it is just like a genuine hate campaign on United. And I get it, like Man United ruined loads of people's childhoods for the past 30 years. Everyone hates them because they won everything and all that kind of stuff. Like, but you need someone who's gonna have the ability to deal with that kind of scrutiny. And I don't know how many managers are actually able to do that.
No.
Ten Hag will go elsewhere, go somewhere else. He'll win stuff. He might go back to Ajax, like if they keep struggling. I could see him in Italy or Spain, or like go. I think he'll go and do well elsewhere, and he'll go and win stuff elsewhere. He's won things wherever he's been.
I think it feels like when you do the Man United job and it goes wrong, your reputation does take a bit of a hit, like a pretty significant hit though. Like David Moyes has not been. Well, David Moyes had to come to West Ham for a second time to sort of almost rebuild his reputation because he was seen as a joke, and same with Same with Van Gaal. I don't think Mourinho ever recovered from the Man United spell. Like it's such a brutal environment just from a media perspective, and like you say, like a fan
It's like a
engagement or
character
online
assassination
engagement
almost.
thing.
Like every opportunity,
Yeah.
anything you can do to do that, to get that. And I think like
Well,
I think the fact that Ferguson handled it so well and was so well versed in doing it, the media got used to being able to go after it. I mean, at the end, like for the last 10 years or something, he didn't even speak to Sky, did he? Like, so
BBC, yeah,
the BBC,
like,
sorry. So it could be that, and it's like it's just that's never been reined in, or I don't know what it is. But yeah, the bloke, I just don't think he had the personality to deal with it, and I think that was telling by the end.
well,
he
it's
oh, sorry.
so I was going to say it's funny you mentioned that because I put something on Twitter earlier, like just to say about Amorim. I'll just put my prediction. Amorim comes in. United Twitter predicts he'll win the league next year. He drops points away at someone like Bournemouth, gets a meme for about 12 months. The usual Man United malaise happens, and he gets sacked. And then Johnny Evans gets a job on an interim basis.
Give it Evans till the end of the season.
Yeah, but it feels very much like that will happen. It's like he's because on Amorim, okay, and it's sort of leading into the Amorim stuff. Like all the stuff that's sort of being said about Amorim now, of like he's this really sort of young upcoming manager who's really highly sought after. He's doing brilliant things in in his native country and stuff, and dominating domestically. Yeah, and like and people will because people do a lot of revisionism now again to suit their arguments or their agendas or whatever. But like it wasn't that long ago. I remember the excitement around Ten Hag coming to United when he got confirmed. And I remember people in the media and I remember people fans of other clubs saying, that's actually quite a sensible appointment. Like that's a problem because United could actually that could work out really well for United. And I'm seeing the same thing. And like you're completely right. I remember obviously I know like the second game, what was it? He lost his first two. Right, it was against Brighton and Brentford. And he got battered at Brentford. But like after those two games, it just became like he's a fraud, he's a joke, like this, that, and the other. And because Amorim, from what I understand, plays a very particular type of football that is gonna leave United open to conceding chances, and it is going to be a steep learning curve going from what Ten Hag's been doing to what Amorim's going to be doing because it's so specific that you just wouldn't be surprised if a very similar thing happens in the sense of like he has a couple of dodgy results to start off with, and then it's just thrown to the wolves pretty much.
Yeah, and everyone's just waiting for it. Like it'll be whether it be rival fans or meme accounts or Talksport or whatever. Like they're waiting for it because they know great. That's our programming sorted. That's my meme sorted for the week. Like we'll just put clown makeup on Ruben Amorim this time instead of Eric Ten Hag. Like it's it'll be assuming that he is the guy that's coming in. Like I say, all kind of arrows are pointing to that. All reports are pointing to that. Prominent. No bullshit reporters, actual journalists are reporting that that's the thing. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me within the next few weeks, if not month, like that he's in. I saw people kind of excited for. What was that? Sorry.
So I was saying, it seems like it's moving pretty quickly. Like I don't know if he was a Man United journalist, but I saw one person saying like they would. It feels like they're trying to get him in before the next game. Which is
well, I think we've got the game on Wednesday against. The cup game against Leicester, but maybe even before the weekend or maybe the game after that they're looking at. But it's what it's nice that they've obviously done it with a plan, rather than what happened like the last few managers. Is like, we got to get rid of the manager. It's like, who are we going to get in? It's like, oh yeah, I knew there was something I forgot. Like I thought I didn't lock the back door. I didn't get a new manager. So it's nice that it's moved this quickly. And like they've obviously like got this guy, like they've decided that this is the next guy that they want to go with. And things are moving fast. Wheels are being greased as we speak, I think. Reed's going to get a game or two. I saw quite a few people saying, we should just give it Reed to the end of the season. It's like, settle down. Like, let's not forget, this guy's been in the dressing room for the season. He's been there for the preseason. He's been the one training these players. Yes, it's a different aspect when you're the manager to an assistant. He's still the guy running the training, setting things up.
Yeah.
If these players aren't able to be finishing chances and creating chances and defending properly, like having the same guy telling you the same thing isn't really going to fix it, is it? Like, so
No,
as much
very
as much as a United legend as he is, and I think everyone like kind of everyone's eyes were like, Ole was great for the first couple of seasons until Ronaldo joined, and then it all went to shit. It's like maybe he could be the next one. It's like, no, I don't think it's gonna work. It would work like that. Unfortunately,
feels very much when you remember when Conte left Spurs and his assistant just took over for 5 games for like no reason.
Yeah.
Like that really weird. It was just like, yeah, it's like what it's like. It's the same setup but worse somehow.
Yeah, same setup, but you know, with a guy that no one's heard of before.
Yeah.
But yes, so yeah, I'm excited. He was one of the few names because we were going like, going through like the odds of managers, and I was going through going, God, this is a depressing list. Amarim was one of the managers where I thought, well, at least like that'd be you're trying something new. You're trying an up and coming manager who's shown like it was the first like Sporting's first title in like nearly 20 years. I think it was 19 seasons they've not won it. He comes in and I think he's won 3 of the last 5. Like they've won 9 out of 9. They like you say, they play attacking football, different kind of shape. He uses 3 at the back a lot there. I don't know whether that would be the case coming into United because he has changed between and used 4-2-3-1s and 4-3-3s, and so he's obviously a tactically adept and versatile tactician. And it might just be a case of they're the players that he had at his disposal, and they're the kind of players that he wanted to work with. We'll see what happens when he comes in, but yeah, it's it's a shame, but at the end of the day, it was the right decision, and it was just time. Like something needed to change. Like I say, if you want to get anything out of this season, it needs to be. There needed to be change, but I think he immediately comes in. The big thing now, though, I think for Ineos, like the new Man United board, is now they've got all their pawns in a row. Now they've got all their chess pieces on the board. Because before it was, well, this was the previous regime's appointment. We're sorting out the board, we're sorting out the youth system and the recruitment, and we're doing the training ground and all that kind of stuff. It's okay. Well, you've hired. This is your manager now. The clock's started ticking. Like once this manager comes in, it's like, well, you're being judged on this now because you can't hide behind that. He wasn't our appointment. If things go wrong, then it falls on them. So yeah, like obviously, I hope he does well. We'll see how it goes, assuming it's Amarim. He'll have to get things ship shape pretty quick because I don't think another 8th, 9th place finish is going to fly. Like it'll have to be top 6 minimum, I think, and then improvements from like year on year after that. I don't think there's going to be. Like I say, I'm all for giving managers time, but I think realizing that things aren't right is you've got to know when to cut the cord. As much as like you got United fans and United fan channels and all this kind of stuff, like we're the club that gives managers loads of time, and like it's like no, you gave 2 managers loads of time. Like 2 of the greatest managers in history. The rest of them, you were quite happy to ship out when things weren't happening. Like Big Ron went after winning FA Cups and things like that. Like it was, and it's the same with any club. You'll keep the manager around. The manager gets time if they're doing well. So if he does well, he'll stick around, and here's hoping. Our dealings with Sporting Lisbon and imports from there have been pretty good over the years with Ronaldo and Nani and Bruno, obviously. Like so, it's been. Hopefully, he's not the first dud transfer we've got from him.
I have concerns. Like, if I'm honest, I think just for everything we've spoken about the size of the job. I think for someone coming in, and look, like I'm not going to sit here and say I think he's going to flop, because obviously, like you, I don't know. Obviously, he was linked with West Ham pretty heavily at the end of last season, so like I'm curious to see how he gets on. That's a big part of the reason why it never happened, because I think he's just got bigger ambitions than what West Ham could offer him. And I think he was obviously holding out for a job bigger than Sporting and bigger than just any Premier League club. I just wonder if he's a bit too still like at the early stage of his career. I know he was at Braga beforehand and he won a domestic cup with Braga, which, given the state of the Portuguese league, it is those 3. It's Sporting, Benfica and Porto, right? So to win a cup with Braga is massive. And yeah, to win Sporting's first like league titles in like 16, 19, 20 years or whatever is huge. But I just wonder if it feels a bit too familiar, you know, in terms of when Ten Hag came in, and I hope for his sake that he's got the sort of know-how and the sort of, I guess, mental strength and the adaptability to sort of, you know, handle the pressure that comes with managing Man United, because I'd be very surprised if he comes in and it's an immediate fix. Like, I can see it being quite a bit of a project, and that's what this appointment feels like. It feels like something with long term in mind rather than sort of short term. Because if it's short term, you go and try and go for like Ancelotti, or you try and go for like an Unai Emery, someone I said United should try and probably go for. Not that I think it would happen, but and much to the Villa fans on Twitter's dismay at me suggesting that, I do. That's it in terms of like if it depends what United want. If United want like, right, we want someone to come in who's going to immediately turn the ship around and get us back to where we want to be, then I think someone like Emery is probably the guy. But if they're looking more at what Arsenal have done, what Liverpool have done with Klopp, and what Chelsea seems to be doing with Maresca, and going, right, let's get someone in now who can develop with us, and in 5 years we're competing at the top again, then Amorim, probably on paper, probably the best suited to it.
I hope that is what the plan is. That you know, you just want to see year on year improvements. Like you say, like Klopp did it, like got his feet in the door, like got like cleared house a little bit, and like the clearing house has already started there. I like even though like people were saying, oh well, he's brought in his own players. It's like, well, there's a reason that Ajax were really good 4 or 5 years ago. It's because a lot of these players, and who have gone on to play for huge clubs, let's bear in mind. Like, it's not like he's just gone back to Ajax. They're not all Anthony deals. He's like overpaid for players who were playing for him last year. These are players who've gone to like Bayern Munich and Juve and like, you know, like all over the place and played to a really high level. I think we've got a really good group of players there, and it is hopefully just going to be the start of that journey, like you say, like building from the ground up and growing into a good club, the way that, you know, that Arteta has been allowed to do. Who still hasn't really won anything. Let's put that out there, but and are actually shite this year. I'm coming out swinging, mate.
We'll get on.
Yeah, hopefully it is that. Like I say, they'll need a top 8 finish this year, and I think just as long as there's progression and improvement, and work towards that goal that Omar Barada came out and said, like, we want to be challenging or winning the title in 4 years. It's like, well, 4 years is, you know, he's going to get the rest of this year and then 3 years after that. And that's kind of, you know, we'll see where we're at that point. Guy was heavily linked to the Liverpool job, obviously linked to yourselves. He's been touted for loads of jobs elsewhere. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've watched loads of sporting games. Yeah. I've watched bits, which is mainly to watch how ridiculous Gyökeres is. So I don't have like any in-depth tactical breakdown of him. I know he likes a 3 at the back, but he's flexible. Like, we'll see what happens. And from what he's achieved in that Portuguese league, where it has basically been Porto and Benfica for the longest time, to really break that duopoly at the top. And let's not forget, got to the Champions League quarterfinals as well, with a team of young players and you know, kind of, it's not even like that Benfica squad that was ludicrous, and like this Porto squad that's got a lot of very good players, and like, you know, build with a team of very young players and bringing players through academies, and who've also gone on and joined big clubs and moved around Europe as well and playing at the highest level now. So I think there's just like a lot of facets to him that fit what United have always been. It's like, you know, giving youth a chance and bringing it through and playing exciting football and all that kind of stuff. And I think he just ticks a lot of those boxes. Like you say, though, it's all going to be personality. Does he have the personality and the mentality? And I know he was a player at the highest level as well. Like, you'd hope he's got the courage of his convictions and the personality to be able to handle like the scrutiny of it. But let's be honest, there's not many. I don't think there's many managers out there who can do it. Like, it's, you know, it's like going into the Barca job or the Real job or the Bayern job, and you sink or swim, and sometimes those jobs can eat you up. Which is why that was the only kind of thing that was making me think maybe Xavi would be a decent appointment because he's used to that scrutiny, he's used to that pressure, he's used to dealing with it. But I think he's a decent manager. I don't know whether he'd be the right guy though. I don't think trying to come in and tick attack of the Premier League. Because the immediate the immediate comparison as well. Well, he's not playing as well as Pep at Man City, is he? Like that would be the first week. That's all it'd be. Like, oh well, he's just Pep light. It wouldn't take that long to happen. But anyway, it's happened. It's been a long time coming. We'll stop whittering on about it now. We've been talking about it for quite a while. Yeah, is what it is. Let's see what the rest of the season holds for Man United, and
interesting season ahead for sure.
Very much. But we'll move on to what we usually open the running order with, and that's we'll jump onto the hot takes and questions. Obviously, every week we send out a tweet asking for your hot takes. You can either do it on Twitter, you can do it on Instagram if you want. You can get on our Discords, any way you want to get in touch with us. We've probably got an email somewhere that we definitely check all the time.
Oh yeah. Imagine we missed out on like 6 brand deals. It's like fuck, inbox
Oh god. I'll hand it to you for the first one.
Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah, so I was going to say, carrying on from the United chat, I guess this is sort of circling back to the game of the weekend. Cameron Ewart, just sort of doubling down on the bullshit VAR decision, saying 2 players coming together isn't a penalty, even with Ings running around on the floor. They are refereeing games, which they said they weren't going to do, or re-refereeing games, which they said they weren't going to do. And then on the result, saying this one's on the players, not Ten Hag, although don't take Rashford, obviously created some chances. He wasn't the one missing them, unlike Garnacho.
We've already covered the penalty and VAR decision and stuff, and it's just another week, another weekend of VAR. Questionable decisions and all that kind of nonsense. With the Rashford one, like I was talking about this on stream earlier, like because someone brought this up. It's like I get the decision with that, because I think Garnacho, whilst yes he missed some chances and like his final third decision making wasn't the best, I still think he looked like the most dangerous player in the final third for us in terms of like getting in behind. Like he was the guy doing stuff. Rashford, he didn't have a bad game, but he wasn't as effective as I'd hope. So yeah, like I don't think he really impacted the game that much. And if you're going to take one of them off, then I think you keep on the guy who looks like he might do something. Rather than the guy who doesn't look like it's coming off really, but it didn't pay off in the end. So yeah, maybe you're right. We lost the game, so yeah, whatever.
What? Fair enough.
Moving on, Mr. Cookie said saw somewhere that Xerxes may be going out on loan in January. Thoughts if he does? May just be bullshit journalism though. I don't see that happening at all. We're already really thin in the final third. He's blown hot and cold a little bit, Xerxes. There's parts of what he brings that I really like. I don't necessarily know whether I like him leading the line on his own. He's a player that I think would suit a more... I know Bruno's a really attacking player, but he wants to get on the ball and play the killer ball. I think if you had someone who's going to run beyond, even like a Mason Mount maybe, like if you had someone who's going to try and break the line from that number 10 position, or like midfielders running beyond, or ironically, I really think Xerxes with Scott McTominay behind him would be really useful. Because like just the way that he drops into spaces and holds the ball up. I think he had a poor game against West Ham, to be honest. And I thought he had a pretty poor game in the week when he came on. But I don't see him going just purely due to squad numbers. If anything else, he's gonna play 30 games this year. It's nice to see how Højlund back in the squad. I thought he's had a couple of really good games. He struggled a little bit to get into the game so much, but the weekend. But I think that's as much as people just aren't creating chances for him, as much as like not finding his runs and stuff. I think he was at his best in the week when he was dropping off the line and spinning things around corners and then getting on the end of stuff after that. But I still like Højlund. I think he needs to show this season that he can be relied on though, and that he can be the guy that leads the line for Man United, unless or else I think there'll be another striker signing in the summer. And I wonder how much United have been fluttering their eyelashes at a giant Swedish bloke in Portugal and thinking, well, he knows how to get him clicking.
Yeah, that's the natural link, isn't it? There's a weird thing at the moment. I think it's like because we're like obviously like a few months into the season now, and like January is obviously not that far away. Where I don't know whether it's agents or it's journalists just trying to sort of like stir stuff or like, but like. If it seems like if you signed this summer and you haven't been playing on that much, you're automatically linked with a move away in the next transfer window. Like I saw it at some German journalist that I follow because he's got links to our sport technical director. He put a tweet out the other day that really caught me off guard. It was just like, oh, despite reports, there's no plans to loan Nicholas Fulkrug out in January. I was like, there were reports? What the fuck? Like, he hasn't even kicked a ball for a shit.
Yeah. I was the one reporting it, mind, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, I have noticed that, a little bit, but yeah, that's not going to be happening. I don't think. Although I did see that is news that has been hotting up around Chiesa at Liverpool, though, right?
Oh, really?
Like, definitely fanned by the comments of Slot as well. It's like saying that he's not at the pace of the Premier League yet, and he needs to get fit and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that's been rumored that he's going to be going back to Italy on loan. We'll see what happens with that.
Almost like it was a bad signing.
So... we didn't call that out at all, did we?
No. Good price, still a bad signing. So Keeney's come in, regular contributor to the podcast as always. And yeah, this. So it's been saying catching me off guard. I saw on Twitter. He's saying, Harry Winks, are you of the opinion that Gary Neville shares that he deserves an England recall? And if so, is he any better than what you've already got in midfield? Did you see this?
I've heard it. I've not heard the actual quotes or what was being said. I've heard that Gary Neville was like basically bigging him up as the Makalele or some shit like.
So it was off the back of the Forest Leicester game on Friday, and all that Gary Neville was basing this off of is Harry Winks' involvement in Leicester's only goal of the game. But he gets on the turn and plays a nice pass forward. But like never, but yeah, I saw on Twitter like he kind of go, oh yeah, England haven't really got a midfielder who can sort of do that, and like maybe even though he's not really, I think he said something like even though he's not really suited to like, like top level Premier League club, he's probably more suited to international football than his club football. I'm just like, what on God's green earth is that kind of a reach? Like, and also. I know they're different players, but like we raved about Kobbie Mainoo in the summer. We've got Alan Walton coming through at Palace, who's like that sort of deeper sitting player who can get on the ball and get the ball forward and be good under pressure and sort of thing. Just an absolutely bizarre take. You know what? In a growing list of bizarre takes from Gary Neville over the last 12 months.
You know what that reeks of to me is saying something in the moment, realizing that it was an awful take, and doubling down.
Yeah.
Don't back down. Yeah. Double down. Limmy it. Like, that's mental. Either that or he's taking a massive blow to the head or something. I don't know. Like, I don't like. Not that I think Harry Winks is a bad player, but to be going like this bloke who spent the entire year at the Championship last year playing all right, to play one pass and he goes, "There's the answer at the midfield." That's what we've been missing all this year, is a guy who couldn't get a game for Spurs.
Like, I've got the quote here. He says, I look at him and I think England lack a player who can get us playing, and he's very suited for that.
I don't mind Harry Winks as a player. I think he's fine, like, as just ticking the ball, through midfield, but no, it's mental.
But so again, but when you got Mainoo and Wharton especially, like, again, not identical in terms of profile, but very, very similar in terms of where they play on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, if only there was a £100 Arsenal midfielder that broke box to box and played between the lines and all that kind of stuff. Like players like that don't exist though. So
he's got a very weird thing with Declan Rice, and I can't put my finger because it started. I think I said before. It started off where he's like he's not a midfielder, he's a centre back. Like he's a better defender, and then like he became a really good midfielder, and now he's like he's not a 6. He's not a 6. He's an 8, and it's like shut up, but like give it a rest, Gary. Go back to your kill sponsorship. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Is like he's a better 8 than he is a 6. And if what he's basing him off is breaking between the lines and playing killer balls, that's an 8. so he's not the 6 that you want in front of the back 4, is he? Jesus Christ, have a day off, Gary. Scott has come in once again, another regular contributor. Thoughts on the relegation battle? Question mark. 9 games in, Southampton look doomed. Ipswich showing fight but losing from 2-0 up. I reckon Wolves and Palace will turn it around? Question mark. Big question, really though. Can Leicester stay up? 5 clear and only 2 behind the United front boys. Oh god. I think
that's like repairs.
I think the thing that Leicester have got on their side is experience in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think their relegation season, as bad as it was just the blip at the wrong time. They've got Premier League experienced players. I don't think they've got the best quality Premier League players, but you've got players who know what it's like, what they need to do to get a result in a game. So we'll see how it goes for them. They're still only on 9 points after 9 games. If you're saying that Leicester look fine, then Everton, who surprisingly I think they've actually been playing pretty well, like are still down there on 9 points. The big ones though are like Southampton look lost, and the manager looks stubborn. Southampton, you could put a claret and blue kit on them, and I'd be easily convinced it was Burnley last year because it looks exactly the same. It's like, we're going to play a stupidly high line, push everyone forward. You're losing every game. Yep. Yes.
We're playing up from the back though, so it's fine.
Yeah. We're trying to play up from the back. Ipswich. It's weird with Ipswich. Like, I think we talked about it last time. They've had a horrific start in terms of fixtures. Horrific start to the season. They come out with 4 points. I need to see more from Ipswich before I kind of fully condemn them, but like they need to start picking up some points pretty soon. They've got some exciting players. Liam Delap, by the way, will be a Premier League striker next year, whether Ipswich are in the Premier League or not. He is mustard. Like, I'm a big fan of him. He's big, he's quick. He just absolutely hammers it from everywhere around the box. Like, he's gonna get picked up by someone. He's gonna be. I could see if they do go down, him being the guy that goes in at Brentford or something like that, or like maybe even higher. Well, you guys maybe.
We need to replace Mikel Antonio at some point.
Yeah. And if you want another big, fast, strong boy who's going to run all day and hit it as hard as he can whenever he gets the opportunity, he's the perfect guy for it. I'm starting to get really worried about Wolves because they come out of every game and Gary O'Neill's like, it was really close. It's like, it was. Got 2 points after 9 games though, pal. Getting close ain't close enough. It's looking bleak. They've got good players and like can influence the game and stuff, but man, like I can't see them pulling it round at this point. And I don't necessarily think it's anything Gary O'Neill doing wrong.
No.
It's just the culmination of the last 3 or 4 years of spending too much money on crap players and then selling your best players to balance the books for it.
It reminds I was thinking about this the other day actually. They reminds me, not so much in terms of because the team I'm going to compare them to were a lot more gutless than this Wolves team are. They really remind me of. Do you remember the year Villa went down? So when they had they sold Benteke and Delph that summer and just replaced them with just cheap shit from Ligue 1 basically, and this feels very very similar in the sense they sold Kilman, didn't replace him, sold Pedro Neto. They brought in Carlos Forbes from Ajax, who a year before that was in the City Academy, went to Ajax, didn't do anything, and this isn't even like a good Ajax team either. And now he's on Wolves at the end of the season. Like they just look like they've been stripped of any and all quality from the majority of their squad. Like they've got a few players, like Lamina's good, and Strand Larson looks like a pretty decent striker for them, but on the whole, and Bellegarde looks exciting in patches, but on the whole, it's just I know their owners had financial issues and stuff, and that's been a big part of the reason why they've had to sell and not really been able to sort of replace with adequate quality. But usually when that happens, it's just a matter of time, unless you strike really, really lucky and pick up a cheap gem. And I know they signed Andre, the Brazilian midfielder, really well thought of, has been looked at by a lot of clubs. But even then, you can tell that's a signing for, well, hopefully in a couple of years he does well enough that we can make a profit on him and just sort of recoup, even more money sort of thing. So yeah, really, like Wolves are in big trouble this year, I think. And I look at them and I just don't see many teams they can go up against and actually get wins from other than Southampton. But like even Ipswich, right? I think Ipswich's biggest problem is they're really good going forward. I don't think they're great defensively. And I've got to say, actually, I think Jacob Greaves has been a bit of a disappointment for them in terms of I thought they made a lot of good business, and he was obviously really good for whole last year. I've seen a few Ipswich games this year, and he's always looked quite wobbly to me. And I think they need to figure out they just need to figure out their sort of best back line because it doesn't really seem to be that settled to me. But even Ipswich, I think, would quite comfortably beat Wolves. And like, I know it was a good result from the weekend being 2-0 down and putting it back to 2-2, but let's be honest. And Wolves fans might argue they were due some luck, but like they were one bad pass away from not getting an equaliser in that game. They were lucky that like Brighton were on a 4v1 and the bloke with the ball just gave it to their defender. Like
it was incredible. Like up there with the ultimate throwaways of all time to be so in control at 2-0 up.
Yeah.
Just give away a sloppy first goal and then like you say 4-on-1. It should be 3-1 game over. And somehow they break away and score like from a big deflection as well, like to take it over the keeper. Brighton just kind of like got pulled apart. It's not to say that Wolves I think have played terribly in loads of games. They have had a rough run of fixtures, but at the same time, to only have this amount of points after 9 games is very concerning. The next 5 games for them are huge. They've got Palace, Southampton. Which if they want to get anything out of this season, they have to win those 2 games because Palace have been really poor. Only won their first game at the weekend. Southampton, terrible, and that's at home. So you'd think they'd get 3 points there. Then you got tougher games against Fulham, Bournemouth, and Everton. But if you want to be staying in the league, you've got to be getting things out of that. You've got to be getting a point, at least a point out of each of those games. Maybe even winning one of them. So yeah, it's a rough run of fixtures that they've had. They're going into like the end of November and start of December with some games that they not winnable games, but games that they have to win now. They've not given themselves the leeway of going, oh well, you know what, a point away against Everton's probably fine. It's like, well, it's not anymore. You've got to go and win that now. Otherwise, I think Gary O'Neill's going to pay for it with his job because after you got West Ham, Ipswich, and Leicester again, tough games, but games that they're going to have to win. And if they're not coming out of this next run of 7 or 8 games with at least 3 or 4 wins, Gary O'Neill's going to be out of a job by January. Which would be a shame because I think he's done a decent job with what he's got available at Wolves, and I think previously at Bournemouth he was given like a really poor hand and kind of given a bit of a poor deal when he got the sack there. Even though hindsight 2020, like Bournemouth have actually stepped on and done really well, but it is what it is with them. It's gonna be rough. But yeah, I think that I can't really see any more teams kind of getting dragged down there, other than the ones that have been mentioned. Obviously, like I say, Palace and Everton included in that. I think Palace and Everton down there in the bottom 5 or 6, and then it's those 2 just above that. So yeah, we're still going to get Europe.
We're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about
14th gets you the Europa Conference League these days, doesn't it? Or something like.
Or maybe the Club World Cup or something at this point. I don't know. But, well, speaking of Palace, well, sort of, but Rinstar in my Discord came with a question. He's actually a Spurs fan for context. Is Palace's recent poor dude. Is Palace's recent win against Spurs the start of the end for Ange? The continued want to play high intensity, expansive football, but seemingly having less and less control as games are becoming more evident. Works at Celtic when your average game is against Ross County, St Johnstone, and Motherwell, but not the level of quality that the Premier League shows. Rinstar's a regular in my stream, and I've said this to him before, so when it comes to news, he does seem to be very quick to always predict the end of managers getting sacked and stuff like that. He's quite prone to it. But
I mean, to be fair, as a Spurs fan,
I guess so.
Probably a good character trait.
I don't know, and Spurs are so weird this year, and I think I said this before, it kind of, for me, it just kind of comes down to where people think Spurs, and maybe where Spurs fans and Spurs ownership think they should be, because I don't know. I said this last season. I haven't really changed my opinion despite the addition of like Solanke, who I still think has been a good sign. I know he's not scoring loads for them, but you can see what he's offering them in terms of their overall build-up play and stuff. But I don't still look at that Tottenham side and think, yeah, you're definitely like a top four nailed on this year. Like they're eighth in the league currently, 4 wins, 1 draw, 4 defeats. Like eighth, seventh, sixth, fifth is kind of where they should be battling for most of the season, and then it just comes down to whether or not they put a little run together to sort of give them a bit of an edge over the other teams competing for those spots. But I, I just don't know if Ange going is necessarily the answer. And sure, he's put a bit of a rod for his own back by saying, "I always win something in my second season," but he's a confident bloke who backs himself. Like I'm never going to have a go at someone for that. But yeah, it just kind of comes down to where people realistically think Tottenham should be. Like just in terms of financial power they've got and quality of the squad. And right now, I think they're top 7, top 8, which is fine. Like,
and you've got to put into context the other teams around them as well and what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
Like I say it all the time. Like everybody wants top 4. Cool. There's about 8 or 9 teams who want to get top 4. Not everyone's getting there, and there's 4 or 5, 6 better squad. I think United have got a better squad than Spurs, but we're just not playing well at all. If the Spurs board think scraping a 5th place when Chelsea, Newcastle, and Man United all massively underperformed one year, if they think signing the striker for a team that finished 12th is going to make the difference in getting top 4, as good as I think Solanke is, and I bigged him up last year, and I think he's a very good striker, that's not going to do it. The rest of the squad just isn't good enough. I like their defense. I like the defenders. I think their wing backs are really good. I like their centre back options. Vicario is a decent keeper. He flutters a little bit between kind of pulling off exceptional saves, and he's a bit Hugo Lloris, like
a little bit, yeah.
It makes the odd Rick, but like you'll nick him a point or a win here and there. I don't think changing Ange would improve Spurs, but I wonder how long Ange can be bothered sticking around and dealing with the questions that he's getting, because he looks like he's already tired of it. And it might just be a case of like he realizes the situation that he's in at Spurs. He might have been sold a yarn saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to invest loads of money into the squad. And you can get all the players you want to play your style of football." And he turns up, and Solanke's a really good striker, but he's not having the overhaul of the squad to compete with the likes of City and Arsenal and Liverpool and even Villa's squad, United squad, Chelsea squad. Like they've not got the quality of the squad there. When you go front to back, like their midfield, some really good players in there. Maddison can go from a 10 to a 4. Disappears half the games, spends half the season on the treatment table. Son isn't the player that he was. You've got, and then like your other starting winger is Brennan Johnson, who, granted, we'd slagged him off and he started scoring every single game, but I think he's still got a low ceiling. I don't think he's ever going to be a elite forward player in the Premier League. Like I don't think he's even going to hit like Rashford heights, like let alone Salah or Mane or like those or Saka kind of things, where you need to rely on those kind of players to get you the goals to compete for the top 4. And if all he's competing for is the top 4 and not for the title, then what's the point? And I don't think Spurs under this current guy or under Ange are ever really going to compete there, just because they're never going to spend the kind of money that they need to for it. And I wonder how long it'll take for the penny to drop with Ange, that maybe it just ain't the job for him there. And I don't know whether Spurs might be better off without him, or because he does have one way of playing, and it is incredibly high risk, hopeful of reward. And Spurs will lose games that they should win because of it. They'll batter some teams, but then they will lose against Fulham, and they'll leave gaps open for like, for teams to take advantage of them. And they will throw games away because they don't know how to see a game out. They've got no game management. But he kind of, you get the impression that he lived by the sword, die by the sword, and he's not gonna sacrifice his belief in how he wants to play to kind of appease a fan base or anything like that. He's been quite eager to just kind of like dig out the fans when they're critical of him. To be honest, so I don't know what the future holds for Spurs or Orange, but to think that they're going to be consistently competing for the top four, with a lot of upward mobile teams around them, it's very hopeful.
Yeah, man, and you think of the Spurs teams of the past when they were consistently in and around the top four. They had Gareth Bale and then they had Harry Kane. They don't have a Gareth Bale or Harry Kane right now. Like, far from it. Like Son on his day was maybe in that category. I would argue he's just below that category because Bale and Kane are and were exceptional players, right? But like world class level. I don't really think Son was ever world class. It's just a level below. But even then, you need. I think you need a player like that who's either going to get you like 20 goals a season guaranteed to give you a chance. And it was the thing that was always said about Spurs: you take 20 goals, 20, 30 goals out of that team, they're going to take a hit in terms of the league table, and I think that's just where they're at. So, whilst you can definitely critique Ange's style of play, and you can point to reasons why it's not going to work and stuff. And I completely agree with all of them. I just don't think changing the manager necessarily is going to change anything for them in that regard. They're still going to be exactly where they are unless they go big in the transfer market or they strike lucky with someone who comes in and is that difference maker for them. But those types of players are becoming increasingly harder and harder to come across. You kind of do just need to sort of take a chance on someone coming in and turning into a Harry Kane or a Gareth Bale or something like that. And like I say, it's so rare that happens. Like you look at Villa and Ollie Watkins, like that's a rarity. And they might John Duran might, if Watkins ever goes, Duran might be that guy for them. But yeah, like it's
and even then
it's so fortunate to find
it took a few years and the right manager to get that out of Ollie Watkins as well. I think like Spurs, they just missed the boat, man. They missed the boat. They were in a really good spot, like when they under Poch, third, second, third, fourth. And that fourth finish was when they should have won the league when Leicester won it. They should have won the league there, and they didn't invest. They didn't spend the right money in the right places on the right players, and they didn't invest in the squad. And that now, like in the last 5 years, they've finished in the top four once. Like they're not a top four side. 6th, 7th, 4th, 8th, 5th. I don't think they're going to finish top four this year. They might finish top 6.
Yeah, possibly.
It depends what happens second half of the season, really. But if they keep leaving gaps at the back and not seeing out games and winning games that they should be winning, it's going to be a familiar story, and it might just be a case of, I don't know. I don't think Ange gets pushed. I think he could walk though.
I'd agree with that.
I could see him just getting pissed off and walking out the door.
Yeah, fuck this, mate.
Oh, mate. See, we are, mate.
Well, I guess there was. Obviously, we've been nattering on for a while now, but there's again been just so much over this weekend. Just a couple of, and from when we didn't record the other week, just a couple more points to finish on, I suppose. Biggest game of the weekend, aside from the United front derby, of course, was Arsenal and Liverpool. Finished 2-2. I caught the majority of the game. I've watched the highlights back since. Really good game. Sort of lived up to the billing of like a second v or one of the top three teams going at each other, and I thought it was a really competitive, really just good game. But a result that a result that definitely does more for Liverpool than it does for Arsenal, who now find themselves. I mean, it's early days, 9 games in, now find themselves 5 points behind Man City, and this is Man City who aren't going to have Rodri for the rest of the season as well. I feel like in any other league season, it's kind of like, oh, it's fine. Like, you can sort of make it that those points were made up. But we've said about this before, when you're competing for a title against Man City, you kind of have to be 99% perfect in order to have a chance of winning the league title. And anything less than that, you'll pack your bags and go home, because City are just, what City are going to do come January onwards, right?
I think the important caveat to this is that's at the Emirates. I think if they go away to Anfield and get a 2-2 draw, I think it's fine. I watched the game, and the comparison, like there was always, well, the media were trying to push the is Is Arteta what kind of a pep manager, or is he Mourinho manager? That's so reductive. Like I hate that discussion. But he's showing that he's more happy to. I mean, he fills his team with 6'2" blokes who can win headers at set pieces, right? Like he's definitely going down the. I want to be more solid and pragmatic and hold like trust my team to see out result than go out and beat a team. And I thought it was really telling when they went 2-1 up, sorry. And it was 11 men behind the ball on the edge of the box.
Yeah.
With half an hour to play. It's like, they're trying to see this game out. And I thought, Liverpool are going to get a goal.
Yeah.
This ain't going to work. Like Liverpool have got, whilst like they're not as chaotic and high tempo and all that kind of stuff as they were under Klopp, they're a little bit more reserved, a little bit more in control. Play at like a slightly more considered tempo under Arne Slot, but they've just got really good players, man. Like, Salah. I say it all the time. He's as close to Messi as I've seen in the Premier League, where like a guy could go 89 minutes walking about, not really doing a whole lot, and then just be the difference maker, just score the goals that get the results. And I kind of half thought that Liverpool were going to go on and win that. Because for a team that has been being bigged up for the last few years, and I've said this year, like they're one of the favourites to win the title, and I think they have to win it before they might start looking at who the next manager might be, because I think it's shit I get off the pot time. As I was saying before, giving managers a good amount of time to get things right, when you've got the right manager in charge. But once you hit that peak, and if you start regressing, if they finish 3rd or 4th this year, it's going to be squeaky bum time. Like if they come out of this season without a trophy again, after loads more money spent, after loads more investment, after being the second best team in the league this year, if they fall back behind Liverpool, who have just got a new manager in who hasn't had any investment, that's going to put major alarm bells for the Arsenal board, I think. So I think for Arteta, he needs to at least be challenging Man City, and to, like you say, to fall 5 points behind after 9 games. Yeah, it's only after 9 games, but if you extrapolate that out over a season, you're going to be 20 points behind by the end of the season, that would not cut it. Arsenal, they probably have a better chance of winning games if they could keep 11 players on the pitch consistently.
And
that's a big kind of. I know, like, it's not all been horror tackles and things like that, but like that just reeks of players just not having match discipline, man. Like getting sent off. I mean, the conspiracy theorists throwing all kinds of shit out for the red card. Man, he was through on goal 1-on-1. Like, I know it was on the halfway line, but Ben White ain't catching him. He's on the other side of the pitch, and he's just clattered into the back of him. It happens, you get a red card, but players getting red cards for kicking the ball away when you know you can't do that, like for second yellows and things like that. It's ridiculous, and I think ultimately that might cost them this season. Their lack of discipline might cost them this season, and it might end up even costing Arteta his job. I feel like their play style has regressed again a bit over the last year, and I think that is more Arteta, like I say, doubling down on being solid and hoping that his exceptional players will make the difference, which is great when you've got Ødegaard and Saka and Martinelli on form and on the pitch, but they ain't got all those guys on the pitch or in form. Saka's mint. Like Bukayo Saka is mint. He's probably the second best right winger in the league right now, and up there for one of the best right wingers in Europe.
I'd agree.
But when what you've got creating for him is 3 defensive midfielders in the middle of the park, locking things up because they're all 6'2" and can win headers.
Yeah,
like it's tough. It's tough work. And when you don't have, like, I like what Havertz has become in that Arsenal team, but he's not going to be. He's never. I don't think he's ever going to be the kind of the inspiration to go and like win a game for you. He's good at bringing other players into play, and when like I say, when you're missing all that creativity in the middle of the park, they're going to struggle. And I think it's just. They're obviously under instruction to try and see games out and win the hard way, but inviting teams like Liverpool onto you, you're going to struggle. You should be, if you want to win the title, even against Liverpool, even against Man City, like against big teams, you've got to be trying to control a game and winning it at home. And they just didn't do that. They played scared, like for the last half an hour of the game, and it cost them. We'll see what happens. It's like I say, could cost them a league. could cost Arteta a job. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's one of them, right? I think if they don't win the league this year, but Pep goes at the end of the season, then then it's absolutely worth giving him another year, because then it's like all bets are off at that point. And like, oh man, it's like I was watching the game and I was just like, this feels like for the first time in ages a proper like top of the table. Like, I know Arsenal sat back and stuff, but like, you think of like I know you said you hate like comparing to like days gone by and stuff, but it felt like a sort of like a Man United Chelsea when it was Mourinho v Ferguson, or like a Fergie v Wenger sort of thing. It had that sort of bite to it. Whereas whenever Arsenal have played City, I've never really felt that. Like the 2-2 earlier in the season was a good game, but this, I don't know, man. Like I not to always harp on about City and stuff, but I can't fucking wait for Pep to go, just so it makes the league interesting again. Because I was just watching this thinking, if you remove City from this equation, this is a really great game and a really interesting game and sets the season up really well. But because you've in the back of your mind, you're just like, yeah, but City can fucking win it again, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, City will hit April or March and just not lose again. Like,
I just want my Premier League back.
I just want my Barclays back.
Yeah, so I just need Pep to fuck off, and then hopefully it'll make, like I say, it'll just make everything way more interesting. But no, like I said, overall, really good game. And yeah, I echo everything you said about Arsenal. Really, like Arteta's done, and I agree to an extent of what you're saying about Arteta. I do think, I know this isn't what you're saying, but like I do think overall, from a lot of people, I think the job that overall Arteta has done has gone massively under the radar in terms of like, and I know you feel the same way.
If you take him from where they were when he took over to where they are now, he's done a brilliant job.
Yeah,
it's
can he go the next step?
I'm going to be really careful here, because this is going to sound like I'm saying they're the same level of manager. I don't think this is the case. It's like what Southgate did with England. Take over a dysfunctional team full of players that aren't really working together, questionable quality, and there's murmurings in the background that things are going to shit. You leave them in a really good position to go and do it.
Yeah,
I just don't know whether Arteta is the guy to go and take this group of players who are very good and take them to the next level and start winning things consistently. I wonder whether he is that transitional manager. I wonder whether he's the Mancini before Pep. I wonder whether he's that manager, or the whatever, he's the guy to build the team and set the foundation for an elite manager to come in and do it. To take.
It feels very Poch. It feels all very Poch. Like, because like Poch was very well thought of during his time at Spurs, and then he leaves, and then it becomes like, well, he's not won anything, and then that just sort of follows him around wherever he goes, really. And you like, for Arteta, that could very well go down that route. And I think even just winning an FA Cup this year, even just, or an FA Cup or a League Cup, or whatever, just get, like, I think, like you said, he needs to have a trophy now. And even for the players, like you look at someone like Declan Rice, right, who says, I've come to Arsenal because I think we can win trophies. And at the moment, and I will keep bringing this up until it's no longer true, he's won more trophies at West Ham than he is at Arsenal. So, like, them's the facts. Yeah, it's like, I'm not doing this to wind Arsenal fans up as easy as it is, but like, again, those sort of players, like someone like Saka, who is fantastic. Like, and I agree, one of the best wingers in Europe. He's still young, but when he gets to like 24, 25, he's been looking around being like, well, Trent's won everything. Other people, like looking at other people in the England squad, like they've all won a bunch of stuff. Jude Bellingham's winning Champions Leagues, and you
think Barcelona or Real Madrid or PSG or Bayern ain't gonna want to snap their hand off to pick up a player like Saka? Like, it'll get to the point where players like him, if they're not winning trophies, they'll think, maybe I won't sign that new deal. Maybe I'll let this run down. And then I've got my pick of my next team. Like, because I don't know when his contract runs out. I assume he's got another 2 or 3 years on it. But maybe,
not sure.
maybe he won't sign the next one. Because then you're approaching Harry Kane territory, where you're hoping you can go somewhere when you're 30, 31 and get something, rather than sitting around. As great as it must be to play for your boyhood club and the team you support. At the end of the day, if you're one of the best players in the world, and if he's not there already, he's right on the cusp of it. He'll be wanting to kind of have shiny things at the end of it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him and just what happens with Arsenal, really, especially as, like we say, there's a lot of upward moving clubs around, and Villa have been great. Like, I don't think Newcastle are going to slip down too much more. They're either going to sell the club or find a way, depending on what happens with all these Man City charges, to get a shitload of money into that club. If Man City get found, like, get away with it in quotation marks, you bet your ass there's going to be a lot of shiny new players turning up at Newcastle. And we'll
100%.
we'll see what happens with Man United. Chelsea have surprised me with how well they've been.
Me too.
I still think they're not the finished article, but haven't they got one of the youngest squads? I don't think they've played a player over the age of 26 this year.
Yeah.
Like, they've got a young squad. They're going to be, like I say, there's 7 or 8 teams who want that top 4 spot. It's going to cost Spurs, and it could end up biting Arsenal in the arse if they don't take advantage of this moment when they are the second best team, well, have been the second best team in the league for the last couple of years. If they don't step on, they could see themselves doing a Spurs under Poch and just fumbling the bag, basically.
Yeah. No, I agree. 100% agree. Speaking of, you mentioned Gareth Southgate there. His successor has finally been confirmed, much to the delight of the Daily Mail in particular. Thomas Tuchel, a German, is the England national team manager, which is hilarious for various reasons.
Yeah. The flag shaggers don't know what to do.
No, they're beside themselves. I find the whole thing hilarious when. And I'm not going to call out, like, you know, just members of the public or whatever, but again, actual like journalists who a week before the appointment were twerking like crazy for Pep Guardiola to come and get the job are now outraged that it's a non-English manager who's got the job. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And look, I've got reasons to be like, it's a shame that it's not an Englishman in charge, but it's not. My reasons are purely football based and nothing to do with. I couldn't give a fuck, like, if Thomas Tuchel was German or whatever, or Argentinian or whatever. Like, but ultimately, my biggest. But I'll tell you my concerns in a sec. What are your thoughts on the appointment of Tuchel?
Looks like England have appointed the best available manager for the job.
Yeah,
like a guy who's got a track record of winning stuff. It might actually be good for Tuchel because he's got a track record of falling out with boards over transfers. He can pick whoever he wants as long as they got the right birth certificate, right? Like, so he controls that. My only concern would be, I mean, obviously he's gonna get some media smear campaign from the red top rags and shit like that, and a load of guys who have a single-digit IQ on Twitter. But my only concern is things that I brought up before in, like, international management is very different to club management, and I wonder how he's going to transition into that, especially when it's only quite a short contract, right? It's only up until the end of the World Cup.
2 years?
Yeah. So he's taking over in January. He's going to take it to the end of the World Cup. How he's going to translate... Because he seems like quite a in the weeds tactical kind of manager. Like, he's very specific about how he wants his teams to play and how he wants things to be set up. Is he going to be able to get that out onto a pitch? If he does, with the players that England have got available, they've got a really good chance of doing very good things. Like see what I said about Southgate before. I don't think he's a particularly good manager, but he did a very good job of transitioning England into a more harmonious place. I think sometimes that is overblown a little bit, but I think the improvement from where they were to where they are now, you can't. Finals and semi-finals, and regardless of performances, you can't argue with that. The quality of the players that they've got right now and the kind of momentum that England have behind them, a really good quality manager like Thomas Tuchel has a very good chance of playing good football and winning football matches and winning tournaments. So we'll see how it goes with them, and whether he ends up staying on, or kind of it's just kind of like a little bit of a stopgap in between club jobs, or whether he finds out he can't translate, or he might find out that that's his jam. Like, he might find out that international management is the thing that works for him really well. Because, like I say, he doesn't have to fight with a board, so he can just he can concentrate on just working with the players that he can pick whatever squad he wants. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. What are your concerns then?
So I think, like, just very quick positives. I agree. Best manager available to get. I think his record in knockout tournaments, especially in in cup competitions, is exceptional. Like, it can't be overstated how impressive it is getting that PSG squad to a Champions League final and coming very close to winning it. and was a Manuel Neuer mistake away from getting to a Champions League final with Bayern.
Winning the Champions League with Chelsea, by the way.
Yeah, and that as
against
well.
City. Like
yeah, and that Chelsea team, you go back and look at that Chelsea team, like it's not a great Chelsea
Mason
team.
Mount in it, for Christ.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all in good. My concerns and my sort of disappointment over the whole thing, though, I think it's a damning indictment of the FA's inability to bring through English coaches. It's something that we've spoken about on the pod before, in terms of there being a real lack of a pathway in England for English coaches to succeed. And that, look, I'm not going to put this all on the door of the FA, because I think the Premier League are culpable for this as well, in terms of, rather than like, how many English managers are in the league now? One, maybe two. Like Gary O'Neill. No, sorry, it's Gary O'Neill and Eddie Howe, right? And Russell Martin and Kieran McKenna. Okay, so four out of 20. If I miss anyone, I
Kieran
apologize.
McKenna's Irish.
Like, oh, he's yeah, of course he is. Yeah, because he keeps getting linked with England jobs. So I just
yeah.
Okay, so three English managers, like, out of 20, and
Russell Martin's Welsh, isn't he? Actually, now I think about it.
But like, yeah. So like the Premier League, obviously, like Premier League clubs are more prone to just getting the hot new foreign manager that's on the market and doing one in Europe, which I get. Like, and I can't sit here and bemoan that when I'm a part of that by wanting that for my club, sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's just sad the fact that there obviously wasn't an ideal replacement already within the setup ready to go. And I think especially when you look at what Spain are doing and where Spain are going to go, because Spain are, as a footballing nation, like just leaps and bounds ahead of us at the moment. I think in terms of how they've, as a national team and the way they've set all that up, they seem to be set for the next sort of like 5, 6, 7 years. It's worked for Germany in the past. Like Argentina have done a pretty good job of it the last couple of years. Like, I think it's just a shame. And I was gutted for Lee Carsley, to be honest, because I know, and I actually think Lee Carsley kind of got screwed a little bit, to be honest, because I thought, obviously after the Greece game, and I didn't watch any of the games in the last Nations League break, because it's the Nations League. I don't care. But by all accounts, the Greece game was horrendous, and the team he picked was really odd. It looked like he picked a team based on just to sort of say, look, Twitter, this is why you can't place 8 attacking midfielders, because this is what happens. And obviously gave really weird answers to the press conference afterwards when asked about taking the job full time. It then comes out that Tuchel had signed his contract a week before, or a day before the Greece game. So I feel like the FA kind of hung him out to dry in that sense, put him in a really difficult position where they know he's going to get asked about the job, but he can't say, well, I'm not going to take it. Why? I can't say. Like, obviously because of embargoes and stuff like that. And it made him look like he wasn't well equipped to deal with the media. It made him look like a bit of a fool, to be honest. And I think for someone who's done a really good job with the under-21s and actually would have been a pretty good candidate to take over from Southgate, just kind of set him up to fail before he even started. And I just, like I say, it's not political for me. It just in an ideal world, you want the England manager to be the best coach from that country, right? I think,
Yeah.
And that's across international management as a whole. But yeah, I think the FA, and I think just not just the FA. I think in this country we have a real issue with just looking down at English managers. Like, you look at Wayne Rooney, for example, is an example I used a few weeks ago. I was talking about this on stream. Like, Wayne Rooney went in at Plymouth, and obviously, didn't do very well at Birmingham, granted, but like, went in at Plymouth, and from the get-go, it felt like people were just waiting for him to fail so they could laugh at him because he's Wayne Rooney and a former player. Gerrard admittedly hasn't been great in management, but Gerrard's had the same treatment, Lampard's had the same treatment, and whilst they haven't been great, and they are ex-players who were at the very top, but remove that, they are very, very young managers, and they're very early on in their career. And should they have got the jobs they got at the time? No. Like, Rooney's actually one who's taken the more sensible approach of managing in the lower leagues and trying to work his way up, and not, Gerrard and Lampard got handed their jobs, right? But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like a shame, and it feels like it should be a bit of a wake up call, I think, for the FA to sort of really do more, like lower the prices of the coaching badges, because I know that got shared around after when this conversation came up when Tuchel got appointed, and it's a joke that it costs as much as it does when you compare it to other nations.
And it's not. I mean, we've talked about this on the pod before, haven't we? Like the difficulty of actually getting into coaching and higher level coaching in England, as compared to even other countries in Great Britain. Like, getting on like a UEFA A and UEFA B and UEFA Pro licenses in England is almost an impossibility. You've got to be working at a club, like in professional football, to get on it in in England. It's ridiculous. And then you put the cost of it on top. I know of people who are doing coaching badges where it's UEFA B or UEFA A, or like eventually, hopefully, they're going to be doing their pro license. They're looking at ones in Spain and France. The reason they're not doing them there is because they have to speak Spanish and French. They're doing, I think they're UEFA A, I think, at the minute in Wales. So like they've had to go through the Welsh FA to do it that way. And it's just an issue, like you say, it stems from the EFL and the Premier League, but also it's just the FA and grassroots funding of football as it is. I've talked about it before, like in the nations like that do really well and produce coaches and players to a really high level, like Spain, like Portugal, like Germany and Italy. Like they'll have like FA coaches in towns on old pitches who are paid by the FA to go and coach kids, but also be doing their coaching badges as they're going up through that, and like it gives people the opportunity to actually get involved in football. Where it is just it feels like, how can we get people who are interested in being a coach to pay us loads of money here? Like how do we make it as restrictive as possible, and then try and then bemoan that there's no one doing it? It's like, why is no one doing it? Why is no one being a ref? It's like, because you pay them like shit and look at the scrutiny they're under. Like, and it's like, well, okay, pay them properly and they'll be better. Why is there no coaches? Because it's incredible. Unless you're a professional footballer, it's incredibly hard, or a former professional footballer, to get on these coaches.
Yeah.
To get on these coaching courses and get these badges and stuff like that, or be involved in football already. It's so difficult and restrictive and and expensive for just people who might be brilliant to go and do it. Like, so it's on them. It's something that needs to change. And like you say, hopefully it is just a bit of the sliding doors moment. Hopefully that's it. My hope is it's something that they've planned with the whole St. George's Park and thing, like knowing, okay, we want to build up, we want to build it from the grassroots and have a central complex for England. Cool. That's the first part. Now it's the coaches, and then it'll be other stuff. Hopefully that's the case. Who knows whether it will be, because
players, I think we've actually done really well with producing good players over the last 10 years. Like, again, you look at the England squad now, you look at the under-21s, like you look at the amount of, it feels like there's more English players who are the sort of stars in the Premier League, whereas it feels like 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't really the case. Whereas now you've got the likes of Cole Palmer and Trent and Saka and Declan Rice and all these players who are just, I know Jude Bellingham's not in England, obviously he's playing in Spain, but you look at, like, he obviously came through Birmingham's academy, but these are world-class level players, right? So it's like we are, the player side of it, we've got down, and it just feels like now we're lagging behind in the coaching department. But like you say, it can't just be relying on former players to come through who just get jobs based on reputation and who they know. It's got to be getting people qualified to actually be good coaches, and if they want to, become good managers later on down the line. So that's my main bugbear with it. Just from that perspective, I think it's just a bit of a, like I say, a bit of a damning indictment on the FA and the Premier League and the state of football in this country. But obviously the football regulator, I think, is coming in soon. Maybe that will have an impact on it. We'll have to see how that plays out. But look, as for Tuchel, ultimately he is the best person for the job that is available. It is mental to me that Eddie Howe apparently wasn't even contacted, which is crazy to me.
That
as far as English,
very much surprised me.
Yeah, as far as English managers, I would argue he's the. If you are going to go down the route of doing English only, he's the most qualified, I think.
He's the standout candidate as an English manager. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see how slated he gets for not singing the English national anthem at the start of a game. So can't wait for that one.
The joys of international football.
Can't wait for that to rear its ugly head again. Well, we'll wrap it up there. It's been quite the bumper episode. Almost 2 hours, Jesus. If you have sat through all this, thank you very much. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, like, stars, whatever, share it around. And get involved in the hot takes and questions next week. Look out for the tweets, get involved in our discords, all that good stuff. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will be back again next week, hopefully. We'll see if United lose again. I'll see if I can be bothered doing it. I may as well play up to the meme at this point.
Yeah.
We'll catch you all next time, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.